When I first realized I wanted to get serious about movies, the first two thoughts that I had were, best idea ever! And I don't know anything about movies. When I started looking into how I would go about teaching myself film, everyone says, start with Hitchcock. His style is basically a series of neon signs for this is how you do movies. The Kuleshov edits, those tracking POV shots, the fantastic montage sequences. But I don't want to analyze Hitchcock's techniques too much. Everything that could be said about it has been said in other places and by more articulate people. What I really want to talk about today is what happened when I decided to move on from Hitchcock and go to the next director on my list. Someone who has just as much right to be considered a master of cinema, but who doesn't get the same kind of artistic recognition that Hitchcock has gotten over the years. And yet this is, one of the most influential, if not the most influential director in the entire history of cinema. Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, Akira Kurosawa, George Lucas, Ingmar Bergman, Stanley Kubrick, a heavy influence on all of them. In a 1968 interview with Playboy magazine, Orson Welles rather famously said that of American directors, he preferred the old masters, by which he meant John Ford, and John Ford. But the YouTube film community isn't really paying attention to Ford, not the same way they do Hitchcock. Nobody's looking at his overall style and his artistic approach to his work. And so that's why I'm here. The first thing you'll notice about John Ford is his use of long takes. Where another director would often cut to a point of view shot or a reaction shot, Ford instead gives us a single unbroken take. This might seem like an attempt to save time and money during shooting, or it might seem like Ford just didn't know what the hell he was doing. Didn't we just get done saying that the Hitchcock way is the way to make movies? But this shot from How Green Was My Valley seems to suggest otherwise. Someone on set suggested maybe they should do a close-up of Walter Pidgeon's reaction here. Ford's response was supposedly, if we do that, they're just going to use it. So why the long takes? Think of a shot as analogous to the sentence. Each one tells us to pay attention to something. The faster we cut from shot to shot, the harder it becomes to understand each one individually. It's like those sped up voices at the end of a commercial advising you of all the reasons you're not going to win the sweepstakes or shouldn't take this medication. We end up left with a general sense of what just happened, but the specifics fly right by. But with longer takes, everything slows down. We don't move on to the next idea. We live with this one moment a while. We're made to pay closer attention to the nuances of faces and of some incredibly subtle performances. The things these actors could do with a look or a gesture is just phenomenal. It reminds me of Fred Astaire once supposedly said, either the camera can dance or I will.
Oh, Mother, I'm lonely without him. I put his boots and clothes ready every night. But they're there still in the morning. They're as lonely I am.
When you see a film that's shot with what they call standard coverage, they film the wide shots and then they move in and do the medium shots and then they do the close-ups. The performances are cobbled together from various takes and various angles, which means the actors are having to be in and out of character constantly. Whereas with the longer takes, you just have these actors embodying these characters in that moment.
I will go down the colliery with you, sir.
Which brings me to my next point. The characters in a John Ford film live in 3 dimensions. Many directors seem to block their compositions as if it's a painting or a stage play, as if there is no depth to the spaces the characters move through. Not so with Ford. He's an absolute master of using the background, middle ground, and foreground to make us feel as though we have been dropped into an actual world. He does this through blocking, through the movements of his characters, through the movements of his camera. It's incredible. My God, every single shot in every one of these movies is an absolute work of art. Why isn't anybody talking about these movies? Just go watch John Ford movies. Really, that's what I got for you. Go watch John Ford movies. Tell your friends. Sit them down. Duct tape them to the chair. Little disclaimer. If you do that, I'm not legally responsible for the consequences. So guys, here are my recommendations. We've got The Quiet Man, we've got How Green Was My Valley, and we've got The Searchers. Let's start a conversation here. Who are some of your favorite directors who don't get the critical attention that they deserve? Who are some other directors I should be looking at? Let me know in the comments down below, and keep an eye on this channel in the coming weeks. We're going to have a couple reviews for you, more video essays further down the line, and some other content. Thanks a lot for watching. Cheers.
Somebody's fiddle.